want to thank everybody for jumping on tonight. It's 6 o'clock. It's after hours. It's been cold. I'm sure everybody's been working real hard. Make sure boilers are up and running and repairing leaks and stuff like that. So, again, I really appreciate everybody taking the time to join us tonight. A couple of housekeeping things as we go through this. You guys are going to get a bit of me on the screen as well as a presentation. So we're going to kind of bounce back and forth, give you a live look at the boilers as well. And then as questions come up throughout the presentation, if you could just throw them in the chat, we're going to stop a few times throughout the presentation and try to catch up and answer some of those questions. Additionally, I'd like to thank the crew in the room, right? I got a few people here with me tonight making this all happen. It's not just me here. So Brad, Mike, Brent, and Julia, I appreciate that. And without further ado, let's kick it off and get started talking about custom comfort boilers. And before we really dive into the boilers, I want to get everybody up to speed on custom comfort and what that is. So Custom Comfort is a brand of the Granite Group, and it's really an all-encompassing heating and cooling brand that we've really built out over the last couple of years. And so when you think about Custom Comfort, again, this is a brand of the Granite Group. This is in addition to some of these best-in-class manufacturers that are on our line card that we support and sell every day. But we've gone and taken another level here with Custom Comfort, right? And this is a brand that's focused on high quality, energy efficient heating and cooling equipment that comes at an excellent value. And so to do that, we've partnered with industry leading manufacturers to get these products to us and be available to you, right? So I'm not making these in my garage. We have partnered with some of the best in the business, some of the biggest in the business that are producing this equipment throughout the world. So you should really have no fear about the quality of the equipment, right? It's excellent quality, again, made by some of the biggest manufacturers in the world. So we're here tonight to talk about boilers, right? And where can you find that information? So we've got a few different resources for you when it comes to finding that information. One of them is going to be a little bit more homeowner driven. If you have a inquisitive homeowner that wants to learn more about the product or check it out, right? And that information is going to be on yourcustomcomfort.com. On that, again, you're going to get a bit of a history of the brand itself. You're going to get an overview of everything that we have to offer, the mini splits that we have, the indirect water heaters that we have, the heat pump water heaters that we have, and obviously the boilers that we have as well. So on there, you're going to find manuals, you're going to find submittals, there's information on the warranties. Some of these products you can register for extended warranties. Some of them you don't need to, but that is going to be your homeowner resource for all things custom comfort. So again, that's yourcustomcomfort.com. Additionally, we have another resource to find this information, right? So again, yourcustomcomfort.com. Think homeowners, but when you want to see pricing and availability, as well as installation manuals and spec sheets, you're going to go to the Granite Group online store. And that's going to have, again, a lot of that same information that's on yourcustomcomfort.com. But we're going to give you live pricing, we're going to give you live inventory, and give you optional accessories like the manifolds that go with these boilers. And again, local inventory. Where is this product, right? It's in our central distribution center and it's in our local branches. And again, that's going to be on the Granite Group online store. A little bit about me. I'm Josh Preston. I am the Director of Energy and Hydronic Product Sales at the Granite Group. That's my contact information. If anybody wants to take that down, be happy to talk about boilers after the fact. If you've got applications that come up, if you have questions that weren't answered tonight, that's my information. Please feel free to reach out. I would love to talk about custom comfort boilers. And again, we've partnered with some of the best-in-class manufacturers to produce this equipment. We're here tonight to talk about boilers. Our partner manufacturing these boilers is a South Korean company called Daesung. And again, these guys are a global manufacturer of high-efficiency boilers and water heaters. They've been in the boiler business for about 40 years now. They've been in the United States with their operation for about 10 years. And they OEM boilers for a number of well-known manufacturers. So there's a good chance that you've interacted with Daesung in some way now installing equipment. And now is your chance for custom comfort. So tonight, we're gonna run through the 3 different models that we have with the custom comfort boilers. We've got a combi boiler, we've got a heat-only boiler, and we've got a fire tube combi. Starting with the combi, we've got 4 different sizes on the combi, and we have a 95% AFUE 316 stainless steel heat exchanger. These are gonna have domestic hot water temperatures with capabilities going up to 140 degrees. On the heating side, we're gonna go up to 180 degrees. All of the boilers that we're gonna talk about tonight are going to be natural gas out of the box, but they all come with an LP conversion kit in the box as well. So diving into a few more specs on the combi, and the 4 different sizes we have for the custom comfort combi boiler. We like to keep it simple when it comes to custom comfort, even down to the part numbers. So our part numbers are going to tell you a lot about the boiler itself in terms of the heating input, as well as the domestic input. And so when you look at our first boiler, the CCO CB 80-155, that's going to be 80,000 BTUs of heating input, as well as 155,000 BTUs of domestic input. And that 155,000 BTUs domestic input is going to give you 4 gallons a minute on the domestic side. As we move up in sizes, we've got a 100, 180. Again, so 100,000 BTUs of heating input, and then 180,000 BTUs of domestic hot water input. That's going to give you 4.7 gallons a minute. We then go to the 2 bigger sizes, so a 120, 199 and a 140, 199. Again, on the domestic side, you're going to get a little bit over 5 gallons a minute domestic, 5.2 gallons there, and then 120,000 BTUs of heat or 140,000 BTUs of heat. Again, these are all going to be 95% AFUE. Your output temperatures are going to be the same across the 4 different models. On the 100, 180, you're looking at a 9-to-1 turn down ratio, and the 120, 199 and 140, 199 are going to have a 10-to-1 turn down ratio. So these things are going to modulate to help with the efficiency. They're going to handle small zones up to large zones, and the whole house is calling for heat and or a large domestic hot water demand. They're going to modulate to meet whatever needs are out there. All these are super light at 95 pounds a piece. And that's kind of a quick rundown here on the combi boilers. So looking at some of the specs and components of the combi boilers, these are all vented in 2-inch. All the boilers we're going to talk about tonight are going to have 2-inch tappings on the top. Your central heating connections are going to be 1-inch. Again, the combi is going to have 3/4 domestic inlet and outlet. It's got a 3/4 gas line. And that's kind of the rundown on the connections and tappings that we have on the combi boiler. Switching over to the heat-only boiler. So 3 sizes there. We've got a 80,000 input, 110,000 input, and 130,000 input. And you're going to notice a lot of the same specs as the combi, right? So same thing, 95% AFUE, 316 stainless steel heat exchanger. Your heating output is going to be up to 180 degrees. It's going to come natural gas out of the box. This is essentially the combi boiler without the system pump, the flat plate, and the 3-way valve. So a lot of similarities there between the 2. We just took out a couple components because we're not making domestic hot water now. Again, continue on with the connections on the heat-only boiler. So similar to the combi, 2-inch venting off the top. We've got 1-inch space heating connections and a 3/4 gas inlet, a heat-only boiler. Included with the boilers are a couple nice accessories. So we give you a few things that are standard amongst all boilers. We also give you a few additional things that some of the other guys out there don't. So we're going to give you a bracket to hang the boiler. We're going to give you a printed manual. So in addition to the online resources for the manual, we have the printed copy in the box, as well as a QR code on the front, right? So we really give you every opportunity to go through the manual, which is nice, right? You can't lose it at that point. So the QR code, it's online, it's printed in the box. We've got a ton of different options there. Again, we talked about the propane conversion kit, right? You're going to find that on the inside of the front jacket of the boiler. It comes with every one of these boilers we're going to talk about tonight. You don't have to worry about ordering a fuel specific boiler. Is it natural gas? Is it propane? Do I need to order a separate propane conversion kit? No, it all comes with the boiler and you're good to go. We also give you, standard relief valve as well as outdoor sensor for the heat only boiler. That comes with the heat only boiler. It does come as an accessory for the combi boiler, so it's available. We have them in stock, but it doesn't come in the box itself. Again, looking at the inside of the cover of the front jacket, we're going to give you a breakdown on the air codes, a wiring diagram, a ladder diagram, and then a bunch of spare parts as well, right? So you've got gaskets, you've got a couple spare fuses. Let's say you've got some bad power on the install, you blow a fuse, you're not dead in the water. You got a spare fuse there. It's also where you're going to find the propane conversion kit is in that spare parts bag on the inside of the jacket. All right, so we're going to take a closer look now at the components of the boiler itself. So bear with us as we make the transition here. Switching over to live mode. But these are some of the accessories as well that are included in the box, right? So we give you some bird screens for your venting, and we give you some flanges to clean up the penetrations through the wall, right? So just the little things that make a difference when you're doing an install. Again, there's no, oh no, I forgot the bird screens, right? And then the flanges really clean up that the vent penetration as you're going through a wall there. But let's take a look at the boilers now and some of the components on them. So looking at the combi, pop this up. So here's our stainless steel heat exchanger, primary, secondary heat exchangers on it. We've got our control board here. That's going to be facing you in the bottom left. That's important. That's where you're going to find the dip switches. You don't necessarily need to worry about wiring to the boiler. We do give you pigtails off the bottom here. So you're not making those connections. You're just adjusting a couple dip switches on setup. We've got a Grundfos circulator here for our system pump. This is a 1578. It's not a 1558. So a little bit of an OEM pump. It's got some higher flow capacity and higher head pressure capacity to push through the heat exchanger here. Additionally, we've got the inducer on top. This thing's a super quiet fan. It's mounted on rubber gaskets, so there's no worry of noise complaints on the boiler, right? Super quiet there. Got the gas valve down here, right? Time engineering gas valves. So you're going to see those in most of the boilers out there on the market these days. We were talking about the propane conversion kit before, right? Super easy to convert these boilers. We're basically popping these two nuts here, pulling out the natural gas kit and throwing in the propane kit and putting it back together, right? So no Venturis to worry about or anything like that. It's just a simple little orifice swap. And then we have the display board on the front, right? So display board is how we're going to adjust temperatures and get into the installer mode, right? Couple other things on the combi. There's the flat plate in the back, right? That's how we're making our hot water. Three-way valve for the combi. And then take a look over here, Brad, on the inside of this one, the heat only boiler, right? So as you can see on this one, it's a little bit more spacious. Got a little bit more room to work on this, right? If you do need to get in there and repair some parts on it, it is pretty accessible. So nice on the heat only, but even the combi, there's plenty of room to work if you got to get in there and work on that thing. Additionally, so let's talk about some sensors, right, on both of these boilers. Here's the pressure sensor here on the heat only. That's going to be the only wet sensor on this boiler, right? Everything else is going to be located on the outside of the piping. So all of your temperature sensors, again, are located on the outside of the piping. So let's say we are replacing one of these down the road after a few years in the field. We're not going to drain the system down to replace the temperature sensor, right? So if the pressure sensor were to fail, you would be draining the boiler down, but that's going to be your only wet sensor there, is the pressure sensor. So super helpful when you're trying to make a repair at this time of night, the dead of winter. All right. Let's talk about the display board a little bit, right? So that's how we're going to program these. That's how we're going to set it up, and go through some of that, right? So this is one of the things I love about this boiler is the simplicity of the control and setting it up, right? It's basic, and I think that's a good thing because we're going to adjust the temperature. We're going to set the temperature. We're going to set the domestic on the combi, and if you want to leave it at that, you can leave it at that. You've got a boiler at that point. But again, talking about that display board, super simple and easy to set up. So when you go through some of the modes on it, right, in setting up that display or setting up the boiler with that display, we're going to hit the mode button until we find what we're looking for, right? So we're going to hit the mode button and wait for the radiator to be highlighted to set the heating temperature. If you're using the outdoor sensor, that's probably going to dictate a majority of that. But if you're not using it and you want to hook this thing up 180 degrees for baseboard, you're going to do that via the radiator symbol on the control board. The combi, if we're setting the domestic temperature, we're going to hit that mode button until the faucet's highlighted, and we're going to set the temperature that we want there. So those are the basic parameters that you can adjust from the front end of that control. So I would say the homeowner side of things, right? If a homeowner were to play with this boiler, that's all they're going to have access to. If we want to get into the installer mode, we can do that. And so it's a little bit more tricky to try to keep some homeowners out of that, right? And that's going to be the mode and minus button for 5 seconds to get into some of those advanced parameters on the control. That is where you're going to find the 3 previous airs that this boiler and the control will provide. So if it ends up being a problematic job, we're going to give you the 3 previous airs. Again, those are only going to be visible and available in the installer mode. So kind of behind that, the installer mode there. But that's also where you can find your the pressure that the boiler is operating at, how many RPMs the fan's spinning at, and some of that more advanced information that a homeowner doesn't need to have or doesn't need to have access to. So again, that's kind of the installer mode, and that's how we're going to view some of those more advanced settings. Continuing on things to look for when setting up the boiler is the dip switches that are located on the control board. So again, when you're facing these boilers on the left hand, the bottom left is where you're going to find the dip switches on the control board. And that's going to become important when you're setting up the vent parameters. So we're just going to tell the boiler how far we're venting, right? And when we talk about venting, 2-inch venting off the top. So if we're venting in 2-inch, we're good up to 60 feet. If we need to go further than that, we're going to have to increase to 3-inch, where we then can go up to 150 feet. But in doing so, we've got to calculate what that total equivalent vent length is, and then tell the boiler what that is. So on 3-inch, not a lot of adjustment needed, right? But it's on 2-inch venting is where we got to really kind of make that calculation and then flip some dip switches based on how far we're venting. So up to 15 feet of total equivalent vent length, no adjustments needed, but 30, 45, and 60 feet, we're going to need to change some of those dip switches to, again, kind of tell the boiler what's going on there. A couple more things about the venting, right? We're kind of saying the quiet part out loud here. On the vent material, these are approved for use of PVC venting, as well as stainless steel, polypro, Centrotherm, or CPVC, like a 636 type of venting. But out of the box, the boiler, dip switch number 1 of that boiler is going to be set to the off position. It's not going to allow the boiler to fire exhaust gas temperatures of over 149 degrees, right? So that's to prevent melting of PVC, what it's rated for. So if we're going to use a proper boiler vent material, we can make that dip switch adjustment and go above that, where we're not worried about melting a polypro, Centrotherm, stainless steel type of venting material. And again, talking a little bit more about venting, if we are going to vent in 3-inch, we want to see at least 12 inches of straight 2-inch off the top of that boiler before making any type of transition to 3-inch or a 90, 45, anything like that. So 12 inches off the top of 2-inch before we put any type of fitting on there. Get on top, and the vent connections on top there, you're going to have rubber gaskets on both of those on the inlet and the exhaust. Those vent clamps that I mentioned before come with the boiler. That's how you're making a connection of the vent material to the boiler itself. And then pretty standard here, but like, let's talk about total equivalent vent length. Again, 2 inch, we're good up to 60 feet. That's a max of 6 elbows. Every 90 is going to be 8 feet of linear venting. Every 45 is going to be 4 feet. Carry that over to 3 inch, right? Max of 8 elbows. 90 is going to chew up 5 feet, and the 45 is going to eat up 3 feet of your total vent length there. Another thing to note, so when we are making that penetration through the wall, again, we give you the flanges if you're going to go 2 pipe through the wall. If you want to use a concentric vent, we're pretty flexible in terms of a bazooka style vent or a flat plate kind of bay vent style. Just know that any of those concentric vents are going to equal 8 feet of total vent length. So again, something to calculate if you do need to make some of those dip switch adjustments, setting up the boiler. Start up there. Outdoor reset, like I mentioned before, the outdoor reset sensor is going to come with the heat only boiler. It's available as an accessory for the combi boiler. If you're setting that up and you're using it on either one of these boilers, you are going to go into the installer mode to do that. So that's the mode minus button for 5 seconds. After that, you're essentially going to choose what type of radiation or heat emission you have in the house. So whether it be baseboard, radiators, we're going to tell the boiler what's going on to set that outdoor reset curve. But then let's talk about a few more things that go with the boilers, right? So a couple of things on both the heat only and the combi that we talked about tonight. These are going to require some type of hydraulic separation, right? At the end of the day, we don't necessarily care how you make that hydraulic separation, whether it be closed space tees, a hydraulic separator, or one of our custom comfort manifold kits. So we've got the combi manifold kit on the left, then the heat only manifold kit on the right. So you'll notice the big difference between the two there. The heat only manifold has flanges to accept a pump, right? So again, the heat only boiler does not have a system pump built in internally. You would install that on the manifold kit there. The combi boiler is going to have that built in. So we just got the 2 pipes coming down, hot and cold going out for closely spaced tees there. So super important, of any of the issues that we've seen in some of the startups on these. If you don't have some type of hydraulic separation, you're going to have a problem. That pump's going to air out with an air code and it's going to cause you problems. So hydraulic separation, super important on both of these. Hammering that point home because we're going to have a different story when we talk about the fire tube later here. System pump for the heat only boiler, again, coming external to the boiler. And it's a 0013 or a 2699 from Grundfos, right? There's a fair amount of pressure drop through the heat exchangers on both of these boilers. Like I mentioned on the combi, it's a Grundfos 1578. The point I'm trying to reiterate here is at the end of the day, the heat only boiler, it's not a 007, it's not a Grundfos 1558. It's that kind of next series up where we can overcome that head pressure and then the flow requirements of these heat exchangers. So think 0013 or a Grundfos 2699 for the heat only system pump. Additional accessories that got to get hooked up to every single one of these boilers. This is a good time to talk about our line of 4Pro products. So we talked about custom comfort in the beginning as the Granite Group's brand offering for our equipment. But think 4Pro is everything else that we have to offer on the private label side of things for the Granite Group, right? So all the accessories that are going to go with these boilers here, and then beyond that, ball valves, we're talking mini splits, line sets, stands for them. We've really got a robust offering under that 4Pro label. Could keep going, talking about garbage disposals and tub drains and all that, but we're here to talk about hydronic boilers tonight. So these are our 4Pro expansion tanks, right? We've got a 15, a 30, and a 60. Gonna need one of those on every boiler. We've also got our own air elimination. So you want to throw an air scoop in with a high vent, we've got that. I prefer to see our air eliminator in the middle there. Or even better, we've got an air dirt mag combo. And the nice part about the air elimination and the air dirt combo, it's essentially the same body, right? So the air eliminator, we've just added a dirt separator on the bottom with a magnet. It's going to be the same stainless steel coalescing media inside of it that really helps remove any of the air that's in the system. Again, if you don't purge the air out of these, you're going to have problems. Set yourself up for success with that better, best type of air elimination there. You want to buy it in a box? We've got that too. So we talked about the expansion tanks. We talked about the air eliminator. We've got a 4Pro expansion tank bracket, and then we'll throw in the Taco fast fill backflow preventer and box it up for you in a hydraulic trim kit. We've got those available in 1 inch and 1.25 inch IPS and press connections. And then just kind of continuing on here, I know all these parts and pieces that you're going to use to hook up these boilers. We've got 4Pro pump flanges, right, or circulated flanges. So IPS sweat press, whatever your connection preference is, 3/4, 1 inch, 1.25 inch. We've got all those available. And then these are coming soon, right? So we're going to have ball valves with drains as well. Expect these to be available in the next month or so. They're going to be on the shelf at a local branch for you as you're piping up these boilers. And then, pretty similar offering to these circulator flanges, 3/4 sweat and press, 1 inch sweat and press, and 1.25 inch sweat and press ball valves with drains. So really kind of rounds out that 4Pro hydronic accessory offering. Kind of wrapping up here on the boilers, the heat only boiler and the combi, but talking about parts. Again, I've mentioned a lot of similarities between the two boilers tonight. That continues with the parts, which is a huge thing, right? So a lot of these parts are interchangeable between the two boilers. The inducers, the gas valves, the sensors, that's going to work on the heat only or the combi. That's the same part. There's a few specific parts, right? You start looking at the control boards. Obviously, the combi has some additional components that the heat only doesn't. But a majority of these parts are going to be interchangeable. And as we talk tonight, I've got every one of these parts available, down to the power cords, right? So let's say something happens, you slice the cord, you can't power the boiler up. We've got that in stock at the Granite Group Central Distribution. So we know that's important. We've got the parts in stock and are here to support the boilers. Let's say you do need a part, right? On the screen, you're seeing the parts breakdown. Pull this right out of the manual. So it's a pretty decent parts breakdown. It's going to give you a good look at everything inside that boiler. Those are our part numbers, so you can, punch them right in the online store. It's going to show you local inventory, where it's available. Yeah, just a real decent parts breakdown if you got to identify which part you need to repair these boilers. So I flew through that, but that was kind of the high level overview of the combi and the heat only custom comfort boilers. I think we had a few questions come up throughout, so we'll try to answer those here. Then jump into the fire tube next. What do we got for questions?
So Al is wondering, can these boilers and combis be daisy chained together to get more BTUs?
Yep. So the question was, can these boilers be, I'm going to say cascaded or daisy chained together if you were looking at a larger application? We can do that. It's going to be via like a Tecmar external staging control. So within the boilers themselves and the control boards, they don't have the capability to cascade, but we could do that externally with some type of Tecmar control or something like that. Yep.
Second question was related to venting, and you did talk a little bit about it. Reconfirm that PVC is allowed under certain conditions, but Central Pro and IPACs and even stainless are also in, right?
Yep. Nope. These boilers. So the question was regarding venting and the use of PVC. These are approved for the use of PVC. Again, out of the box, the boiler is going to limit the flue gas exhaust temperature so that we don't have any risk of melting the PVC pipe, right? And again, we're saying the part that a lot of other manufacturers aren't. We'd rather see it vented in, I'm going to call it proper venting material versus PVC. So for us, that's Central Therm S636. That's stainless steel venting. But hopefully that answers the question regarding PVC.
I just wanted to make sure that if they use PVC, they weren't putting their warranty.
Nope. It's right in the manual. They are approved for PVC venting.
And do the stands shown holding them, are they available for sale also?
So unfortunately, Al's question was, are the stands available? These are just display stands. You know, we are working on some type of solution though to have a stand for these boilers. I'll reiterate that again when we talk about the fire tube, but for now, these are gonna be hung on the wall. Or if you want to build a strut, a standout strut or something like that, that would probably be your best bet right now. Good. Any other questions?
The one.
Yeah.
Kayla said, my devices were not cooperating tonight and I had to switch between iPads. So I definitely missed some information. Any chance I can get a copy of these slides emailed to me?
Yeah, we can definitely do that. We're also recording this, right? So we'll try to make that available as well. And then if any follow-ups needed, again, my information or any Granite Group location can help you out with that.
Yes.
Yeah, all right, another one.
Ginny asked, is there any sort of air purge on the boiler? Or is it a purge through the piping?
There is air elimination inside the boilers. Your best bet is gonna be to purge through the piping. I can move your finger. So again, the question was, internal air elimination on these in terms of purging and getting them set up. There is an air vent in the back here, but your best bet is really gonna be purged through the piping of the system, right? That's gonna be your best bet for purging these on setup. Good. Any other questions?
No, that was great.
Okay.
Great questions. Appreciate it.
Yeah, keep them coming as we go through. We are gonna dive into the fire tube combi now. And this is a fun boiler to talk about, right? This thing is pretty sweet. It's got a lot of cool features that we don't have on the boilers we talked about first, the combi and the heat only. And Brad, I'll take the hood off here so we can see inside of this, but so that is the Custom Comfort Fire Tube Combi. That's what we call this boiler. It's 199,000 BTUs of heat input and 199,000 BTUs of domestic input. So on that boiler, we are using a totally different heat exchanger, right? So this thing's got a 316 stainless steel fire tube heat exchanger, as well as a built-in low loss header and or buffer tank, whatever you want to call it. But this is where we start to differentiate ourselves from other boilers that are in the market, is that low loss header and the buffer tank. And what we can do with it and the advantages that come with it. So with that being said, inside that low loss header is how we make our domestic hot water. So no flat plate like we talked about before on the combi. We've got a big coil inside that low loss header, that buffer tank, and that's how we're making domestic hot water. So no three-way valve to worry about, no flat plate. Really just a good way of making domestic hot water. But the other benefit that comes from that is the need, or the lack of need, I should say, for primary and secondary piping. So because of the water content in the volume between the fire tube heat exchanger and the low loss header, it's just under 4 gallons of hydronic water at that point. There's enough volume there where we don't need to pipe this thing primary or secondary, right? So in terms of setting it up and piping, you're coming off the bottom and you're going over and you're hitting your supply and return zones. No manifold, no hydraulic separator. You're just coming off like you would pipe a traditional system and going from there. So in terms of the time to install, the cost to install, you're gonna save time, you're gonna save money, a lot of cool features that come from that. So walking down some more of these benefits here, 12-to-1 turn down ratio, right? It's a big boiler, it's 199,000 BTUs, but it's gonna modulate all the way down to under 20,000 BTUs. I think 17,000 BTUs on the low end. So again, we're kind of sizing for the domestic need here, knowing that the heating side can ramp down to under 20,000 BTUs. You want to do domestic hot water recirc, we've got a dedicated recirc tapping on this. So, you know, pipe your recirc line directly back to this boiler, and it's going to make sure that you've got hot water at all times. Also on the boiler is a built-in pump control. So the control board of this boiler has the ability to control and power up to 3 circulators. So anything less than 3 zones, we don't need an external relay at that point or circulator control, right? We can do that all based on the control ward of the boiler itself. So again, you're saving some money without the need for an external control if you have less than 3 zones. The biggest feature of this boiler that you're going to appreciate is the serviceability and accessibility of it. And we'll kind of look at that a little bit deeper later on. But if you need to repair anything on this boiler, you can get at it by the access panels on the outside of the boiler. Same thing on the venting. Again, stainless steel, PVC, CPVC, polypropylene. We're going to tell you we'd rather see stainless steel, CPVC, or polypropylene. We'll talk about the warranties a little bit later as well, but 10 years on the heat exchanger, 5-year parts warranty on this fire tube combi. And then on the screen, you can see we're working on this right now with our manufacturer, but this is going to be a game changer for us. A floor mount piping kit, a floor stand for this boiler. So now we've got one boiler that covers just about any residential combi application that's out there, right? We've got 199,000 BTUs. You can hang it on the wall. You can mount it on this floor kit, all within one boiler, right? So it's going to cover just a real broad list of applications in the field out there. So give me a few months on that. We'll have those in stock if you have a floor mounted combi application that you're looking at. So just kind of running through some additional specs on the boiler as well, right? Talked about a lot of this, the turn down ratio, the input, the water content on this. The one downside of this boiler, if there are any, is potentially the weight. It's a heavy boiler. It's 146 pounds. So unless you're the Incredible Hulk, you're probably looking at 2 people to hang this on the wall. 1.25" supply in return heating connections, right? We've got 199,000 BTUs here, so it's a little bit different than the boilers we talked about earlier. But the rest of the connections are going to be pretty similar. 3/4 domestic inlet and outlet, 3/4 gas inlet, all that same stuff there. Again, kind of looking at just a different view of what we just talked about, but 2-inch venting off the top as well, right? So similar to the other boilers, even though it's 199,000 BTUs, you can still vent this up to 50 feet at 2-inch. So slightly different than the first series boiler, right? That was 60 feet. We're talking 50 feet now, or up to 150 feet at 3-inch if you need to go that far. This is a pretty cool view of how we're making your hydronic heat water for the house and or domestic hot water for the house, right? It's just a good illustration as to what's going on inside that boiler, because there's a lot going on, right? When we look at how we do this, but yeah, that's a good illustration there. So, cold water's coming in, being heated through the fire tube heat exchanger. In heating mode, it's just going to flow through that buffer tank, right? And out to the system. And then on the right, when you look at that, that's the domestic side. And jumping around here, but your cold water's coming in, flowing through the coil of that low loss header and or buffer tank, and coming out hot. So that's again, just kind of a recap on the heating mode and then domestic hot water mode. This is just a different way of looking at that, right? Versus what we just saw there in terms of what's going on between the fire tube heat exchanger and then the buffer tank, right? So same thing, just a different way of looking at it here. You can see a circular is pushing up through the fire tube heat exchanger. Got that loop there. Yeah, another look at it. So heating mode, right? As to what's going on. Coming in cold, going out hot. Domestic, right? So same thing. Cold water coming in, going up through the coil of that low loss header buffer tank. And as you can see on the heating side, though, we're kind of circulating there, right? And getting flow through both the fire tube heat exchanger and then the buffer tank there, right? And I say that because you can have some simultaneous domestic output as well as heating output with this, right? It's not a flat plate. We're not diverting water to the flat plate versus the rest of the heating system. On this, you could pull off both domestic and heat all at the same time. the one thing to know with that is you are limited to the domestic output. Or excuse me, your heating is limited to the domestic output, right? You're going to rob heat out of that buffer tank to heat the domestic hot water. So it's limited in its capability, but it does have that ability. And this is just a look at the domestic recirc mode as well. So again, you're using domestic, we can keep that buffer tank hot so that there's hot water available at all faucets throughout the house. It's a cool look at the inside of that fire tube heat exchanger, right? Just, you know, took the hood up. Now we're looking inside the engine and the workhorse of this boiler. So there's 76 of those spiral baffles that go through the fire tube heat exchanger. It's got nickel brazing to prevent any leaks down the road on that heat exchanger. And then let's talk about the control, right? So the combi and the heat only we talked about first, super basic. There's a little bit more going on in this one, but I would say as easy, if not easier to set up than the first one we looked at. And so I say that, you know, again, keep it simple, right? But I got 6 buttons instead of 4, but it's going to tell you what's going on. So in normal operation, it's going to show white on the screen. Let's say you got an air code that's popping up, it's going to be red. Red means stop, right? So something's going on there. But real intuitive control, super easy to set up. And we do that via Startup Wizard, right? So the programming on this, we're going to walk you right through it. As basic as setting the date and time to start it with, but then going a little bit deeper and really getting into some of those parameters, right? Again, like we talked about before, it's going to come natural gas out of the box. It's a super easy conversion on the propane kit. We do need to tell the boiler what fuel is being fired by though, right? So that's going to come into that Startup Wizard. You're going to tell it whether it's natural gas or propane. You're going to tell it how long the vent length is. You're going to tell it what the vent material is. So again, a little bit different than the dip switches we talked about earlier. This is all done in that Startup Wizard, right? So what are you venting it with and how far are you venting it? And then the fan and the control and the boiler is going to do the rest from there. Altitude, I would say for the majority of the applications that we run into, that's not going to be a factor, right? But yeah, super easy with the Startup Wizard. Again, it's going to walk you through everything you need to know and checking out that boiler. So let's take a look at the boiler itself in the serviceability that I mentioned before and the accessibility of it, right? I think that's one of the best features of this boiler is how easy you can access anything on the boiler. So starting on the top here, we've got the intake filter on the outside of the boiler, right? So you're not trying to squeeze in here and get to that. That's right on top. On the bottom here, we've got filters on the heating return, on the recirc, and on the domestic inlet. So we're trying to protect that boiler or the heat exchanger on that boiler, right? You know, if you're looking at annual service, stuff like that, good idea to pop those stainless steel screens out, flush them out, clean them if there's any debris in there. Again, you're going to want to have some type of air elimination, but would also recommend dirt separation or a magnetic dirt separator to further protect the heat exchanger on this boiler. It's a little thing, but we include it with the boiler. If you look all the way down here, we've got a built-in drain on the boiler, right? So you can drain the boiler down. It's super accessible. And it's at a low point. So if you do need to work on the boiler, you're going to have access to it and not have to worry about an external drain. So these access panels that I keep talking about, right? That's how we're getting to the parts and pieces of this boiler. And you've got 4 of them. You've got 2 on this side, 1 on the top, and 1 over here. And that's where you're going to access the inducer, the circulator, condensate trap. On top, you've got the rec access to the flame rod and igniter. So anything that you need to get to, you have access to. Super accessible, super easy to work on. Like I mentioned before, it's a heavy boiler. It's 150 pounds. We give you handles though, so you can mount this thing on the wall, right? Again, kind of the little things that make a difference when you're installing one of these. Try to think of all that stuff. The pump control, like I mentioned in the beginning, you're gonna have the ability to use up to 3 circulators wired directly off that. So that's all done right off the control board. And then we'll talk a little bit about the warranty as we kind of wrap things up here. Again, the Combi boilers are going to carry a 10-year warranty on the heat exchanger, a 5-year warranty on parts, and a 1-year labor warranty. And we're going to give you an extra 5 on the heat only. So 15 years on the heat exchanger, 5-year parts, 1-year labor. You know, a little bit less on the commercial side, right? But residentially, that's a good warranty. The labor rates for the warranty, right? So year 1, you got a problem with this boiler, we'll compensate you if you got to go out and work on these things. Again, you know, really looking to stand behind these boilers. Should there be any issues that pop up after the install, during install, after the install. And then tech support, right? So no, I'm surprised nobody asked the question earlier, but you know, it's the Granite Group's private label brand, right? How do we support these boilers? Who's here to help? We have an internal technical support team. There's 7 of them on our tech team. And all these guys have field experience. They've installed boilers in the past. They've been factory trained on our custom comfort boilers. That number on the screen there is going to direct you to kind of a party line that rings to all those guys. The one thing I'll say is leave a voicemail if you're going to call these guys, right? If you can't get somebody on the phone, leave a voicemail and they will call you back. They're busy. If you don't leave a voicemail, it may be a while before you get a call back. So that would be my one piece of advice. Make sure you leave a voicemail. Nobody's picking up on that line. So that kind of wraps up the fire tube boiler. I just want to quickly run through another thing that we offer at the Granite Group under our 4Pro brand is our Ready Wall, right? So let's make the install of these boilers that much easier. We've got pre-built zone boards here that we call the Ready Wall by 4Pro, right? So if circulators is your preference, we've got 2, 3, or 4 zone left or right hand connection Ready Walls with circulators available. They've got closely spaced T's on them, right? So again, if we're talking about the combi or the heat only, your primary secondary is built into the Ready Wall. You close that valve, you can hook up the fire tube because you don't need the primary and secondary anymore. Zone valves, same thing. If that's the way you like to pipe your boiler, we've got 2, 3, and 4 zone valve Ready Walls available. Left or right hand connection. That's going to have a Takeout 0015E on the zone valve Ready Wall. The circulators that we mentioned before are all going to be 007Es. And then the Ready Wall with a hydraulic separator is also going to have Takeout 007E circulators on there. So again, hydraulic separator, 2, 3, and 4 zone left to right hand connection available. We've also got it available with a 1-inch zone. So if you wanted to pipe up a custom comfort indirect off a Ready Wall, we've got 3 and 4 zone Ready Walls available with a 1-inch zone, followed by, you know, either 2 or 3 3/4 zones. So again, a left or right hand connection is available there with a 1 by 3/4 zone header. Last thing, talking about the Ready Walls, is the ability to now go up to 7 zones if you've got a larger application where you need that. So 2 zones all the way up to 7. You know, 5, 6, and 7 zone applications are going to be done via this 3-zone adder that we have. It mates up perfectly to our pre-built Ready Walls. So you're just popping a couple unions in, or excuse me, a couple adapters, a couple unions, and it's gonna mate up and pipe up directly to the 2, 3, or 4 zone Ready Wall right out of the box there. That's just a quick look at the piping of it and what that looks like there. So that's the Ready Wall offering that we have. Again, 4Pro by the Granite Group. That kind of wraps it up here. So I think we probably had a few questions pop up on the fire tube throughout. A lot of questions. All right.
A lot of great questions, and this one I'm not sure, Josh. It was kind of came in the transition from one side of the room to the other to the fire tube. So
Yep.
I'll ask that maybe it's appropriate for both. Do these need a separate condensate neutralizer?
Yes. So the question was, do these boilers need a separate condensate neutralizer? We have those available by 4Pro. So yes, they do require a condensate neutralizer, likely a condensate pump. And again, we have those all available under the 4Pro brand.
And I believe this one was already answered, but is an external control needed for the domestic return pump? For domestic recirculation?
Yes. Yep. So you would, the question was, do you need an external domestic recirculation pump? You do need an external domestic recirculation pump. On the fire tube combi, the primary pump of that boiler is just flowing through the buffer tank and the fire tube heat exchanger. Domestic recirc will be done via an external pump, but we've got a dedicated tapping for it there. But you are going to need that external domestic recirc pump. Yes. Yep.
And Rob Delan wants to know, are all models mass approved?
So the question was, are all models mass approved? It's a great question. And if we were doing this next week, I'd probably have a different answer for you. But the fire tube combi, we are still waiting a mass approval for. And the 130,000 BTU heat only, we are still waiting for mass approval for. So the 80, the 110, and then all of the combi boilers are currently mass approved. But the two that I mentioned is the 130 heat only and the fire tube combi. We think a couple more weeks and those will be mass approved and ready to go. Yep.
Jimmy wants to know, what is the max temp of outlet of domestic hot water?
So on both of these combis, we're looking at 140 degrees max domestic outlet temperature. Yeah. The question was, yeah, what is the max domestic output temperature? It's going to be 140 degrees on both of the combis here. Yep.
Will we still need additional strainer screens?
So I would say on the combi and the heat only, not a bad idea to throw a Y strainer on there. Again, the dirt separator with a magnet, never going to be a bad thing to include those in your system. On the fire tube combi, again, we've got some filters built in. I would push more for a magnetic dirt separator on the fire tube versus an additional Y strainer or something like that with the filters that are built into it. So.
This is a question related, I believe, to the fire tube as well. It appears in the inside there are two manual valves with blue handles inside the boiler cabinet. Can you explain their functions?
Yep. So the question was the blue handle ball valves inside the fire tube combi over here. So these would be if you had a situation where you needed to isolate the buffer tank that's on this boiler. So let's say I got to replace the coil or the buffer tank here. You do have the ability to isolate it, but that's what we're doing with these ball valves that are here. Shouldn't need to touch them, again, unless there's for some reason you needed to isolate that buffer tank. So I would say, don't make an adjustment and get yourself in trouble. Out of the box, you should be good to go with the blue handle ball valves. Yep.
Excellent. And then we're back to venting. Yes, does this need 2 feet of straight? In two situations, do you need 2 feet straight before any elbows are in?
Yep. So venting on the fire tube, we would like to see 12 inches of 2-inch off the top of the fire tube before making one of those transitions. Again, whether it be to 3-inch or a 90 or 45. But yeah, similar to the first series boiler, we would prefer to see 12 inches of venting, 12 inches of 2-inch venting off the top. Yep.
1 foot, not 2 foot.
Yep. 1 foot, not 2 foot. Yep.
And then before I turn it back over to Julia for the next question, we did get a nice compliment that you understand the importance of parts and they're already in stock.
Absolutely. Yep. Nope. We knew that was important when it comes to boilers in general, right? But specifically our custom comfort offering. Yeah, no, happy to have the parts in stock here.
Jonathan Walker said you did a great job.
Appreciate it.
Jay said, how many GPMs of output for the domestic hot water for the fire tube boiler?
Yep. So domestic output in terms of GPMs on the fire tube boiler are going to be 5.2 gallons per minute on the fire tube combi. Yeah.
Nancy wants to know, is the 877 number that you listed up there replacing the 603 number for tech support?
They all end up bringing the same place. So, it doesn't matter what number you call there. If you have the old 603 number, great. If you have this number, it's all gonna end up at the same place. Yep.
Al has the relief valve shown there on top of the boiler. Can that be mounted vertically?
That be mounted vertically. I would say that is where we want the relief valve. I mean, if you came up with some additional fittings, you might be able to pipe something up, but I do appreciate Al bringing that up. I think I did miss this when we were talking about the boiler. We give you this little Christmas tree manifold with the boiler, all right? So that's a nice another accessory that's included with it. And again, you can throw an air vent on top here, right? You've got the relief valve right off the top there. So just purging out any air that might be inside that buffer tank.
All we have so far.
Okay, all right. Appreciate everybody taking the time tonight to go through these boilers. I'll speak for myself as well as the rest of the grant group. Super happy to answer any questions that come up, any applications that you may run into down the road. Be happy to answer those. So again, my information is available if you need to get a hold of me or your local grant group representative. Our branch is going to be a good resource as well. And appreciate the time tonight.